the cigar that Kipling loved and the world forgot. Somewhere in Havana, behind a door that no longer bears its name, sits a factory that once produced one of the most respected cigars on earth. Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem about it. Orson Welles smoked it. For nearly a century, it stood shoulder to shoulder with the biggest names to ever come out of Cuba. And then, slowly, almost silently, it vanished from the world's attention. Not because it burned out, not because it was destroyed, but because history moved on and forgot to take it along. This is the story of Por Larrañaga, the cigar that may be the oldest surviving brand in Cuba, and the one that time nearly erased. By the end of this story, you'll understand why collectors still whisper its name, and why one of its most beloved sizes was killed off, mourned for years, and brought back from the dead for a single country in a single limited run. Why this cigar matters. To understand why Por Larrañaga matters, you have to understand what it means to survive in the cigar world at all. Brands rise and fall constantly, fashions change, factories close, revolutions nationalize entire industries overnight. Most of the great 19th century Havana names that once filled the humidors of kings and industrialists are gone, completely absorbed, discontinued, or reduced to nothing but a label on a box in a museum. Por Larrañaga is one of the rare survivors. Historians consider it one of the two oldest Cuban cigar brands still in continuous production, trailing only the brand Cabanas into existence. But survival isn't the same as being remembered, and that's the strange tragedy at the center of this story. This is a brand that outlived nearly everyone else and still became a footnote. In its prime, it wasn't a footnote at all. It was described by aficionados as being in a class of its own. It carried a nickname that told you everything you needed to know about its reputation: the University of Havana, a brand so respected for craftsmanship that smoking one was considered an education in what a cigar should be. So why don't more people know the name today? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. The origin story. The year is 1834. Havana is a colonial port city, thick with the smell of curing tobacco leaves drying in warehouses along the harbor. A Spanish immigrant named Ignacio Larrañaga, who had arrived in Cuba around 1825, registers a cigar brand under his own name. Some accounts suggest he may have started the venture with his brother Ambrosio, but historians still debate the exact details of those earliest years, a small mystery that has never been fully resolved. The first factory is modest, a small building on Calle O'Reilly, in what is now Havana's historic center. Within a few years, demand forces are moved to a larger space on Calle San Miguel. This is Cuba in its tobacco golden age, a place where the soil of the Vuelta Abajo region was already being recognized as producing some of the finest leaf on the planet. Larrañaga's cigars were rolled from that same legendary tobacco at a moment when Havana was becoming a word that meant something far beyond a place on a map. But the brand's real transformation came later, when it passed out of the founding family's hands entirely. The Golden Age. In 1870, a man named Antonio Rivero Martinez acquired Por Larrañaga. Under his ownership and later under his widow Antonia Lopez, who ran the company after his death, the brand didn't just survive, it became an institution. By the closing years of the 19th century, Por Larrañaga had built a reputation among high society and celebrities on both sides of the Atlantic. It was priced for the elite, but it was never only for the elite. The company also kept more affordable lines in production, meaning the Por Larrañaga name reached far beyond wealthy collectors and into the hands of ordinary smokers as well. Its most famous admirer put it into literary history. In 1886, the British writer Rudyard Kipling published a poem called The Betrothed, about a man forced to choose between his fiancée and his cigars. In it, he wrote the now famous line comparing the calm of a Henry Clay to the peace found in a Larrañaga, placing the brand permanently alongside one of the other great Havana names of the era. Decades later, the filmmaker Orson Welles would be counted among its admirers as well, a Hollywood legend, drawn to a Cuban name that had already been legendary for 100 years by the time he picked one up. By 1920, the brand was successful enough to purchase a large new factory building on Carlos III Street in Havana, a serious investment, and a sign of just how far the company had come from its single room on Calle O'Reilly. But behind the prestige, a different kind of history was about to unfold, one that had nothing to do with taste and everything to do with labor, machines, and the future of how cigars would be made. The hidden story. Here's the part of the story most casual cigar drinkers never hear. In 1925, Por Larrañaga did something no other Cuban cigar factory had done before. It became the first in Cuba to introduce machines into the cigar-making process. This wasn't a small decision. Rolling by hand took years to master. A trained torcedor represented enormous investment in time and skill. But the new rolling and wrapping machines, imported from the United States, could be operated by a worker trained in as little as 2 weeks and could produce a cigar with an acceptable draw for roughly a quarter of the cost of a hand-rolled one. For the ownership, it looked like the future. For the rollers of Havana, it looked like an existential threat. The response was immediate and fierce. Cigar workers, already living through a period of labor unrest across the industry, launched strikes and a boycott against the company. The message was unmistakable. Automation would not be allowed to replace the craft that had built Havana's reputation in the first place. Por Larrañaga backed down. The machines were returned to the United States, and the brand continued, at least for the moment, in the traditional way. It's a strange footnote in cigar history, a brand famous for old-world craftsmanship that was, for a brief moment in the 1920s, at the very center of the industry's first real confrontation with automation. Most smokers today have no idea that battle ever happened, let alone that it happened here. But an even bigger transformation was still ahead, one that had nothing to do with machines and everything to do with politics. The fall or disappearance. In 1960, the Cuban Revolutionary government nationalized the country's cigar industry. Por Larrañaga, like every other major Havana brand, passed out of private hands and into state control. At the moment of nationalization, Por Larrañaga was still a major player, ranked as the 6th largest Cuban cigar brand by production. Manufacturing shifted from the old Carlos III factory to the legendary La Corona facility, where much of Cuba's cigar production would now be consolidated. Through the 1970s, the brand held on to its reputation, but then, for reasons that even collectors and historians still debate, production began an unexplained decline through the 1980s. The 1990s brought a different kind of blow. A trademark dispute, the details of which remain a subject of debate among collectors, restricted the brand's exports to only a small handful of countries. A name that had once traveled the world through the hands of writers and film directors was now confined to a fraction of its former reach, sold mainly in places like Canada and the Middle East, and largely made by machine or hand-finished rather than crafted entirely by hand. For a brand that had built its reputation on old-world skill, this was the quietest kind of tragedy. Not a dramatic collapse, just a slow fading from the world's attention, one export restriction and one production shortfall at a time. This is how legends disappear, not always in a single dramatic event, sometimes in a decade of small decisions that add up to silence. The collector's hunt. But silence isn't the same as extinction. And this is where the story turns toward the people who refused to let Por Larrañaga be forgotten. In 2002, the brand made an announcement that sent a ripple through the cigar world. Every Por Larrañaga vitola would return to being made entirely by hand, using long filler and short filler tobacco grown in the Vuelta Abajo region. For collectors who remembered what the brand had once represented, this was treated as something close to a resurrection. Then, in 2006, Habanos SA did something that turned quiet respect into genuine obsession among enthusiasts. They revived the Lonsdale, a size that had been discontinued and deeply missed by longtime fans, and released it in a limited run, packaged in 25-count dress boxes, sold exclusively in Germany. That same year, Cigar Aficionado gave a Por Larrañaga cigar its first full review outside of the magazine's smaller Connoisseur's Corner feature, a petite Corona that scored a respectable 91 out of 100. It was a small moment, but for a brand that had spent decades on the margins, it was a signal that the wider cigar world was paying attention again. Since then, the brand has become something unusual, a favorite subject for limited regional editions. Collectors now track releases made exclusively for single countries: Switzerland, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, each one produced in tightly limited numbers, each one instantly sought after specifically because so few people know to look for them. That's the paradox of Por Larrañaga today. It's not rare because it's extinct. It's rare because most of the world simply stopped paying attention, which to a serious collector is precisely what makes a name worth chasing. The legacy and final reveal. So why does a 19th century cigar brand, largely unknown outside serious collecting circles, still matter today? Because Por Larrañaga is proof that a legend doesn't have to be everywhere to be real. It survived a labor revolt against its own machines in the 1920s. It survived nationalization in 1960. It survived a decade of unexplained decline and a decade of legal restriction after that. And it is still today rolled entirely by hand from tobacco grown in the same region that made it famous nearly 200 years ago. Most of the great names Kipling could have chosen to write about in 1886 are gone now, absorbed into other companies, discontinued, or reduced to nothing but a name on a collector's spreadsheet. Por Larrañaga is still here. Quietly, almost invisibly, but here. Some cigars disappear because the world forgets them. This one disappeared because the world simply stopped looking, while it kept on, patiently, in the same city from the same soil for nearly 200 years. And that, in the end, may be the rarest thing of all.